The smell of antiseptic was sharp in that small exam room. My scrubs were still wrinkled from a full shift, my hands flat on the table, and the paper in front of me had my name at the top and numbers underneath that didn't make sense. The doctor slid it toward me slowly, like he was handing me something fragile. "Valentina," he said, keeping his voice low, "this didn't happen by accident. Someone has been doing this to you consistently over several weeks." I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I went completely still. Because in that exact moment, before he said another word, I already knew who had access to everything I ate, who brought me food every single day, who held my face in her hands and said, "Stop wasting money on takeout, let me feed you." I already knew. Let me take you back to before I knew. Before I understood that the person making me sick was the same person I would have died for. My name is Valentina. I'm 31 years old. I work as a pharmacy technician at a mid-sized regional hospital, and I'm the first person in my entire family to work in healthcare. That still means something to me. It always will. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, the second of 3 daughters, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs for most of my childhood. Money was always tight. There were years when tight was an understatement, but my mother made sure, even on the hardest nights, that we knew we were loved equally. All 3 of us, no favorites. That was her rule. 8 months ago, I moved in with my older sister, Rosario, and her husband, Derek. A bad breakup had left me unable to carry my apartment alone, and Rosario offered without hesitating. It felt like a lifeline. She wrapped her arms around me and said, "We're family. My home is your home." I believed her completely. I've always been the quiet one. Not flashy, not the kind of person who announces her plans before they're finished, but steady. I'd been saving carefully for 2 years, taking night classes toward my full pharmacy license, and I was 6 months away from a promotion I had worked 3 years to earn. I wasn't the one they always praised growing up. I wasn't the prized child. But I had something they didn't expect. I paid attention to everything. If you grew up being the one who was overlooked, the one who worked quietly while someone else got all the credit, this story is for you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever trusted someone completely only to realize they saw you as a threat? Subscribe so you don't miss how this ends. And if you're already feeling this one, go ahead and click like. 8 weeks before that hospital visit, I started feeling sick. Dizzy spells at first, then stomach cramps that came in waves, and a fatigue so heavy that finishing a full shift felt like running through water. I told myself it was stress. Burnout. I told myself I just needed rest. Rosario was attentive. Almost immediately, almost eagerly. She started bringing me homemade meals every evening. Soups, rice dishes, teas. Every morning there was a travel mug waiting on the counter. "You're running yourself into the ground, Val," she'd say. "Let me take care of you for once." I thought it was love. I drank it. My coworker Priya noticed before I did. Not emotionally, but physically. Priya is sharp that way. She pulled me aside one afternoon in the break room and said, "You looked completely fine 3 months ago. This isn't burnout. Have you eaten anything outside the house lately?" I laughed it off. I told her Rosario was a good cook. Then came the crack. I was walking down the hallway toward my room one evening when I heard Rosario in the kitchen, voice low, talking to Derek. I stopped. I held my breath. And I heard her say, "She's not going to make it to that promotion review. I'll make sure of it." I stood in that hallway for a long time. I told myself I misheard. I told myself it was about something else, something at her job, something I didn't understand. I went to my room, and I lay in the dark, and I told myself a story that let me sleep. 2 days later, I collapsed at work. My coworkers called an ambulance. The ER ran a full panel, and that's when the toxicology report came back. Trace amounts of a compound that causes chronic fatigue, nausea, and cognitive fog when ingested in small, repeated doses over time. A compound found in certain herbal supplements. A compound found in the cabinet under Rosario's kitchen sink. And then the doctor told me something that made the room tilt. The substance wasn't only in my bloodstream. It was in the travel mug I brought to work every single day. The one Rosario filled for me every morning. The one she handed me herself at the door with a smile every day for weeks. She handed it to me herself. Every single day. I moved in with Priya while I recovered. I didn't announce it. I didn't make a scene. I packed quietly while Rosario was out, and I left. Then I called my mother. The phone went silent for a long moment after I told her what happened. Then she said carefully, Micha, Rosario told me you've been having mental episodes at work, that you've been paranoid and making things up. My stomach dropped. Rosario had already called. She had already planted every seed she needed. And my mother, who loved me, who never played favorites, was now looking at me through a lens Rosario had constructed. The family believed I was unstable, not victimized, unstable. A few weeks later, I went to my cousin's baby shower. I shouldn't have gone, but I needed to feel like I still existed in my own family. Rosario was there, warm and gracious, playing the concerned older sister for every aunt and cousin in the room. When I found a quiet moment with my aunt and started to speak, Rosario crossed the room in seconds. She put her hand up gently and said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Val, please don't do this today. We've all been so worried about your mental health. This isn't the place." The room went quiet. People looked at me with soft eyes and tilted heads. Pity, not belief. I walked out. I didn't say a word. I sat in my car in the parking lot and I breathed. Later, I found out through a family friend what Rosario and Derek had been doing behind the scenes, telling relatives that I'd become erratic, that I'd threatened Rosario, that I was jealous of their stable life. This wasn't impulsive, it was coordinated. They had built a story about me before I could build a true one. And then the motive came fully into focus. My mother had recently updated her will. The family home, small but paid off, was being left equally to all 3 daughters. Rosario wanted me out. Professionally ruined, mentally dismissed, gone from the picture before that will was finalized. But I didn't explode. I didn't post anything online. I didn't call relatives and beg them to believe me. I told Priya, I'm not going to fight them the way they expect me to. I'm going to fight them the way they won't see coming. I started documenting. Saving voicemails. Writing dates and symptoms in a medical journal with the precision of someone who works in healthcare, because I do. I photographed the supplement bottles I'd seen in Rosario's cabinet before I left. I kept everything. What they didn't know was, I work in a pharmacy. I know exactly what substances do to the body. The moment that toxicology report came back, I didn't just feel devastated. I started building a file. Weeks before I got sick, I had photographed a specific herbal supplement bottle sitting in Rosario's kitchen cabinet. Just casually. Innocuous about the brand. I never imagined I'd need that photo, but there it was, dated and saved on my phone, the same brand. The same brand the ER would later identify as the likely source. I contacted the hospital's patient advocate, who connected me with a legal aid attorney who specialized in personal injury and domestic harm cases. And while Rosario thought she was erasing me, every single morning she handed me a poisoned travel mug and smiled. She was actually handing me more evidence. They made one mistake. They underestimated how much I'd been paying attention. My attorney was thorough. While building my case, she uncovered something I hadn't known. Derek had previously run a small contracting business that had collapsed under fraud allegations. A former employee named Greta had filed a civil complaint against him. It was quietly settled, sealed with an NDA. The attorney reached out. Greta agreed to speak, carefully, within the bounds of the NDA, and what she confirmed was a pattern. Derek had a history of quietly isolating and discrediting people who threatened his financial interests. It was deliberate, it was practiced. That reframed everything. It wasn't just jealousy, I told Priya one night. This was what they did. I wasn't the first person they tried to disappear. Priya stepped fully into my corner. She worked in the same hospital, had access to records management, and helped me formally document the complete timeline of my physical decline in clinical language that would hold up anywhere. Meanwhile, Rosario's confidence was growing. She began openly discussing plans to contest any equal split of the family home, telling relatives I was in no condition to manage property. She even reached out to my employer, anonymously, but traceably, suggesting I might have a substance problem that could compromise patient safety. My career. My pharmacy license. The one thing I had built with my own hands, without anyone's help, without anyone's approval. That was the moment I stopped playing defense. She went after my career. That was the moment I decided we're done being quiet. The confrontation happened in a formal mediation session. My attorney requested it as part of a civil claim for personal injury and intentional harm. Rosario and Derek arrived with their own attorney. They looked calm, confident. They had spent months building their story, and they believed it would hold. Their attorney opened by describing my claims as emotionally driven accusations from a troubled young woman. He leaned into every piece of the mental health narrative they had carefully constructed. Rosario sat with her hands folded, composed, performing serenity. Then my attorney began presenting the evidence. Layer 1. The toxicology report, timestamped and signed by 2 independent physicians confirming chronic ingestion of a specific compound over an estimated 6 to 8 week window. Layer 2. The photograph I had taken of the supplement bottle in Rosario's cabinet dated 3 weeks before my first ER visit. Same product, same lot number. Layer 3. Rosario's own text messages, subpoenaed from her phone carrier. One message to Derek read, "If she makes it to that promotion, Mom's going to trust her even more. We can't let that happen." Layer 4. Greta's statement, admissible within NDA limits, establishing a prior pattern of deliberate harm and financial manipulation. The room changed. Rosario's attorney asked for a recess. Derek went white. But the most powerful moment wasn't legal. I asked to speak directly and my attorney let me. I looked at Rosario. I kept my voice calm. No rage. No tears, just clarity. "Rosario, I moved into your house because I trusted you. I drank what you made me because you were my sister. And you looked at me every morning and handed me something that was making me sick. I need you to sit with that. I need you to say it out loud, what you did and why." She didn't speak. She looked at the table. That silence was the confession I needed more than any legal ruling. Our mother was in the room. My attorney had quietly ensured she was present as a family witness. She had not known, none of it. And the look she turned on Rosario, not rage, not drama, just devastated recognition. That was the consequence that hit hardest in that room. Derek's attorney signaled they were prepared to discuss settlement terms. Rosario still didn't look up. I didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. The civil settlement covered my medical bills, my lost wages during the months I was sick, and my legal fees. But the thing I insisted on, more than the money, was a formal, written acknowledgement of harm, signed, on record. Because I needed it to exist somewhere permanent, my employer received the full documented timeline from my attorney. The anonymous tip from Rosario was flagged as malicious. My record was formally cleared and my promotion review was rescheduled. I passed. My mother updated her will with independent legal counsel. All 3 daughters remained equally protected. But she and Rosario did not speak for the rest of that year. That fracture, I want to be clear, is not something I caused. I didn't break our family. The truth did. And the truth was already there. I just stopped letting them bury it. I moved into my own apartment. Small. Quiet. The walls were bare for weeks and I liked it that way. Everything in it was mine. The scariest part wasn't finding out someone was poisoning me. The scariest part was realizing how long I'd been drinking it and calling it love. If you've ever been harmed by someone you fed, defended, or made excuses for, someone who wore your trust like a disguise, I want you to know that what happened to you wasn't weakness. It was loyalty, and loyalty is not the same as being naive. Have you ever had a moment where you realized someone close to you wasn't who you thought they were? Share it in the comments. You don't have to go into detail. Even just, "I've been there," matters more than you know. And if this story moved you, if it reached something you've been carrying, click like to help this reach others who need it. Every week we share stories about people who were counted out, pushed down, or quietly erased, and who found their way back anyway. Not because life handed them something easy, because they refused to disappear. If that's the kind of story you need in your life right now, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. And before you go, scroll through our recent uploads. There's a story there waiting for you. One that might say exactly what you've been needing to hear. We'll see you in the next one.